Hello, my name is Holly, and this is the Murder She Shed. Welcome to my Zen Zone, my little shed in the woods that takes all my stress away, and I hope it does that for you as well. And in my Zen Zone, I often paint. This is one of my paintings I just did. I call it The Praying Mother. Maybe one of these days I'll paint and tell a story to you guys, although I'm thinking that'd be kind of complicated, but I don't know. Today is Suspense She Shed Serial Killer Sunday. This is the story of a serial killer that I was not real familiar with. I did a deep dive into Joseph Kallinger, and he is one creepy son of a gun. His childhood was horrifying. And as I researched this case, I have to say I think he is on the top 10 list of creepiest serial killers. So, a warning is needed for some graphic discussions of violence and child abuse and a lot of other things. This is a rough one. Just wanted to let you guys know that. First, before we begin, please hit that like and subscribe. For more unique true crime cases, I try to discuss cases that are not repeats. So, if you are tired of the same old on other channels, then give me a try and hit that subscribe. Here we go. Joseph Kallinger was born to a young mother that could not keep him due to her husband abandoning her. With great sorrow, the young mother let another couple adopt him. Joseph was adopted by Stephen and Anna Kallinger in October of 1939. At about 3 years of age is when he was adopted. His new father, Stephen, was a shoemaker, and as far back as Joseph could remember, his father would always be holding a knife with a green handle for scraping the leather on the shoes. Every time he would threaten Joseph, he would hold the knife up toward him and threaten to send him back to the orphanage. This deeply affected Joseph because of one beating that he endured by his dad. It had given him a hernia. And so he had to be sent to the hospital for surgery when he's just 7 years old. When he arrived back home, his parents set him down and told Joseph not only did he have a hernia surgery, this is really cruel, but the doctors had fixed his bird. Bird was the name they gave his penis. They informed him a demon had lived in it, and the doctor had got the demon out. And this would always keep him, sorry for saying this, soft and small. They said it would keep him out of trouble. In reality, it was a cruel way they had told him because he had basically been caught playing with himself at 7 years old, something that's normal for a child that age. They were hoping that continually telling Joseph this, that it would cause him to become impotent. His mother, Anna, loved to use a wooden spoon on his hands. When she felt he got out of line, she'd hit him with that spoon. They told Joseph they had adopted him in order for him to take over the shoe business one day. They would make him start learning how to make shoes as a young child. After school and on weekends, he was only allowed to help his dad make these shoes. He could not have friends or go anywhere at all. All this time was spent learning the family business. He was often flogged by leather straps by his dad. Often for a punishment, he would be made to kneel down with bare knees on strips of coarse sandpaper used for sanding leather. And you know, if it's sand leather, it was coarse. And he had to kneel down for hours sometimes when he came home from school, causing his knees to bleed. One time he wanted to go to a school trip to the zoo, but his mother said that was a wasted day at school and he would just stay home and help his dad. When he complained, Anna grabbed up a hammer and hit Joseph over the head. She hit him 4 times, causing blood to gush from his head. As he started walking, he was falling into the walls and furniture, and everything was just spinning. Anna then began chasing him and beating him with a broom. After this, she took him to the bathroom where she poured iodine over his cut from when she had hammered his head. And it stung, he would say, so bad. His dad would often beat him with a cat of nine tails. Here's a picture of one if you don't know what it is. His dad made this out of some scrap leather from his shoes he made. When Joseph was 8 years old, 3 older boys would molest him while holding a knife to his throat. He kept this a secret, all to himself. He was never given birthday or Christmas gifts. His parents told him that his gift was them adopting him and he should just be happy about that. They started letting Joseph go to the movies on Saturday afternoon if he got all of his work done for that day. Joseph enjoyed the freedom at first until he realized the other children had friends they came with. And he would always be by himself, which is so sad. So he decided to start stealing some coins out of his parents' closet in order to pay other children to go to the movies with him. And it was working until his parents realized he had been stealing from them. Stephen's dad said they were going to burn the demon thief out of his fingers. Anna turned the flames of the stove top all the way up, and his parents held his fingers in the flames until his hands sizzled. Joseph wanted socialization so bad that it didn't stop him from stealing. He would just repeatedly get his hands burned over and over again because he just wanted to have friends so bad. That is so sad. Additional punishments by his parents included kneeling on jagged rocks, being locked inside closets, consuming his own feces, being burned with irons, and being starved. One night while laying in bed, Joseph went downstairs and grabbed his dad's knife with the green handle and took it to his bedroom. He loved the power that it made him feel just holding it. He cut a hole in his wall with it. Let's just say he made a use for that hole. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. As he grew, he started bringing dirty picks to his room and would take the knife and put holes in the breast and stomach of the women in these picks. He got off on that. In 9th grade, Joe started drama, and his teacher was impressed with his acting skills, and he loved it. And his teacher told him he should attend Arts Academy when he graduated from high school. Joe told his parents he wanted to be an actor. They told him to perform for him in their kitchen. When he did, they laughed at him and told him he would never be an actor. He was not good. And Stephen said, if you don't want to be a shoemaker, then you will be a bum. As a teen, he would have his first strange encounter with a person. He had other strange encounters, but usually it didn't involve a real person. He would lure a young boy to a creek, telling him they were going fishing. After they got to the creek, he pulled a knife out of his pocket and told the boy to drop his pants. He had the urge to cut the boy's penis off, but he chickened out and just ran back home. This would be an urge he would get often, ever since he was little, and thought his parents had done something to his. He had become fixated on doing this to other males. The thought of it would sexually excite him. When Joe was 15, he began a sexual relationship with a schoolmate named Hilda Bergman. His parents told him not to see her, but he married her and had 2 children with her. She later left him because of the domestic violence she suffered at his hands. Joe remarried in 1958 after he was released from a mental hospital and had 5 children with his second wife. His second wife was Betty Baumgart, and he met her at a railroad station while taking his 2 children from his first marriage to a boarding school. His children threw a ball to her, and she began interacting with them. And Joe was impressed with her mothering skills, so since Hilda, he said, was not a very good mother, Betty was quiet and compliant, unlike Hilda, and he liked that. Joe could only be intimate with his wives if he held a hidden knife in one of his hands. He never used the knife on them. He just needed the feel of the knife and the thoughts in his head to get anything going, if you know what I mean. He would end up spending time in and out of a mental facility when the kids were little. He was then diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic during that time. He would end up in prison for arson and also on child abuse charges. He often would torture his 5 children for his second wife, just as he was tortured. In the book, The Shoemaker, that I'd read, Joe was interviewed to get the details of the book. It does mention in the book that he had an attraction to his daughter, Mary Jo. And one summer, they got really close, but it doesn't go into details of any sexual abuse. It insinuates that that's what happened, like a 3-week period in the summer, and then he said, we shouldn't do this, and they quit. That's what it insinuates. He would often chain his children up in the cellar and torture them. He kept torture items in the cellar, such as heavy rope, 2 feet of rubber hose, a box of straight pins, strips of leather, and, of course, a homemade cat o' nine tails, just like his dad had. The children actually called it the torture chamber. For one particular incident, 2 of his children finally turned him in and he did some prison time. He had accused his boy Joey and daughter Mary Jo of being easy. Mary Jo was the daughter that he was attracted to. First, he chained Joey up, and then he bound Mary Jo's hands behind her back, and he tied her feet together. He heated up a metal spatula as hot as he could, had her stripped naked, and touched her inner thighs with the spatula, basically branding spots on her inner thighs, telling her that the scars would keep her from being with boys. They then went back to Joey and took a hammer and repeatedly hit him all over his body, just like Anna had done to him. Although he did spend some time in prison, he would convince his children to say that they had lied about the abuse, and the charges were eventually dropped. He then would begin his killing spree and enlist the help of his 13-year-old son, Michael Kallinger, to help him carry out his horrific plans. When Joseph requested Michael's help, the boy responded with great enthusiasm. "Glad to do it, Dad," he said. Together, they murdered their first victim, Jose Colazo, a young Puerto Rico boy whom they lured to an abandoned building. After they got him in the building, they then made Jose undress, tied him up, and stuck one of his socks in his mouth. They then, this is pretty graphic, they then took a hand cutter tool and put it deep inside of the boy, then pulled it back out and cut his penis off. It is unsure which one did kill Jose. They then just walked home and told each other good night, like it was any other normal night after killing Jose. Michael and Joe's second victim would be Joey, Joe's son and Michael's brother. So on July 28, 1974, they convinced Joey to go explore an abandoned building with them. They then climbed down some stairs that went underground. When they were just partway down the stairs, they noticed the bottom had been filled up with water. Joe and Michael spotted a ladder that they told Joey to climb on so they could take his picture on this ladder. Michael took out some chains from a bag and started tying Joey to the ladder. Joey just thought it was going to be another sadistic picture like his dad liked to take. That's the sad part. So he went along with being tied up. Then Michael and Joe picked the ladder up and carried it to the edge of the stairs, where they dropped it off into the water below. After falling, Joey landed face down with the ladder on top and was able to stick his head up just one time, long enough to say, "Daddy, help me." Joe watched this boy, named after him, drowned, and he actually got excited from his death. After the authorities found the body, they did suspect Joe of the murder, but had no proof that he had actually killed his son. They really expected it after they found out that he had bought life insurance on Joey just a few weeks before his murder. But because the insurance suspected foul play, they never paid out. Joe would later say that Joey was a sacrifice. He said, "I was to murder 3 million people on the planet Earth, and he was sacrificed to see if I could murder one of my own. The end of murdering all the people on the earth. I was going to murder my own family and then take my own life and become God." Yes, God. This is when they decided to break into a woman's house named Joan Carty. Then they tied her to her bed. They grabbed some items they wanted to steal first, and then Joe kicked Michael out of the bedroom and locked the door. Joe was not able to perform, so he just told Joan, "You're just not my type," before he shut the door and left. Although he wanted to kill Joan, he could not get himself to do it. Joe and Michael would get braver and braver each break-in. On some, either Michael would sexually assault the women or Joe would. On January 8, 1975, Michael and Joe broke into the home of Mr. and Mrs. DeWitt Romaine. 8 people who were in the home were held hostage by them. Joe ordered several of them to remove their clothes and tied them up. He committed acts of personal abuse and degraded 2 of the women. One woman, he was going to cut off her breast, but only ended up just slicing her on the breast. Joe was interrupted by Marie Fashing, who came into the house. She was also captured by Joe. Brought Maria down to the basement where he had a man named Frank tied there. Frank, he had pulled his pants down. And when he got Maria down there, he told her that he wanted her to bite Frank's penis off. And if she didn't do it, then he was going to kill her. And she refused. So suddenly, he took the knife out and began to slice her neck. The last thing Maria would say is, "You're drowning me," as she was gargling on her own blood. Suddenly, Michael came in the room and said one of the victims had got loose and was outside screaming, and they needed to get out of that house. Joe looked back to see Maria still alive, standing in her own blood. Unfortunately, before the authorities got there, Maria would pass away. As they were running from the house, Michael, who was not the sharpest tool in the shed, actually took off his shirt and threw it in a bush in a park they ran by. In this shirt, he had his last name on the tag in the shirt. So, of course, authorities knew exactly who did this, and they came straight over to their house to arrest them. Michael was never given any charges for murder, only received armed robbery charges, and was put on probation. He was also put in a foster family's home. Upon his release of probation and youth institute facility at age 21, Michael was given a new identity, and his whereabouts have never been revealed. Maybe that's where Michael Myers came from. Spooky thought, huh? Joe was found sane and sentenced to life in prison. But in 1979, he was sent to a mental facility due to multiple suicide attempts, including trying to set himself on fire. I'm going to show you a 2-minute clip of Joe. You will see how nuts he was. He passed away from heart failure on March 26, 1996. Well, guys, before I show you the clip, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Okay, here's the clip. Bye. Love you guys, and thank you guys for watching, and y'all have a blessed week.
I'm a patient person, got a good listening ear, and try to help people.
You're patient with a good ear, and you try to help people.
Yes.
When you're not trying to murder them.
Yes.
When Kallinger's reign of terror ended, 3 were dead, including his 14-year-old son.
You murdered your own son?
Yes, I did.
Why did you do that?
He was a sacrifice. I was to murder 3 million people on the planet Earth. And he was a sacrifice to see if I could murder one of my own. At the end of murdering all the people on Earth, I was going to murder my own family and then take my own life and become God.
What do you think of the death penalty?
I'm opposed to it.
The state has no right to take your life, but you can murder other people?
I don't think anyone has a right to take a life.
Except you?
When I'm under hallucination, I do.
These voices from God, these hallucinations, do you still experience them?
Yes, I do.
Often?
Often.
Do you ever feel violent?
Yes, I do.
What do you feel like doing?
Killing people.
You still feel like killing people?
Yes.
Describe the feeling that you get when you feel like killing people.
Well, last March 11th, I was hallucinating, and I took a razor blade and I cut a man's throat.
Here in the hospital?
Here in the hospital.
Do you think you'd murder me, Joe?
Yes.
That's gruesome, Joe. That's horrible.
Yes, it is.
And you don't blame me if I say I hope you never get out of this place.
I hope I never do either.